So you have to have the courage to do something. You also have to have the courage if you don't do anything. Because either way, you've got to live with the consequences of everything that you do and everything that you don't do. Should you take that job at Walmart? Should you have taken that job at Starbucks? One thing's for sure is that most people are going to think that whichever decision they didn't take, that's the better one. Oh, if I had just taken that job at Starbucks, I wouldn't be having to stock these shelves right now. Oh man, things would be so much more chill. Well, you say that. And then the people at Starbucks are thinking, man, if I was working at Walmart, I'd be getting paid more. I could hide in the back and not do a lot. We say that. But which is the better way to go? The better way to go, like anything else in life, and I can promise you this, the better way to go in life is determined by how you respond to it. Which one should you take? Walmart or Starbucks? Doesn't matter. Probably. What matters is the person you take to that job. Yeah, there's something there about saving up enough courage, because if you, like in your example, they're going and talking to somebody, you drop all of your courage out there, and then you finally do it, that's just one time. And then you gotta have the courage to do it again, and then again, and then again, and that's just talking to a person. If you're talking to them for a purpose, like you wanna go out with them, then you're gonna have to get the courage to ask them out. And so it isn't enough just to drop all of your courage out there. A lot of times, it's just the opening bid, almost. Even like with college. Some people stress out about getting into a college, then you get into the college, it's like, I got in, and that's good. That's good, but understand that it is just like a step towards a much loftier goal. Like if you wanted to be, I don't know, a veterinarian, let's say, getting into college is the first step towards, or at least the next step towards that much larger goal. There are several steps all along the way. But oftentimes we treat that first step like it is the goal, like it was the big thing. It's just like with graduating from college, graduating from high school. High school graduation sometimes makes me, what the word is, melancholy, I suppose. Because for some people, it is the peak of life. Like I think I mentioned before, like I don't come to the homecoming games here. Because if I come to the homecoming games, it messes me up for like weeks afterwards. Because I interact with people who graduated from here, they'll be, class of 92 or something like that, not class of 91. And they're still trying to, like, every year they come back to try to live that high school memory just one more time, because for them, at least in their own minds, not actually in reality, but in their own minds, high school was like this peak of like life. Like that was their pinnacle, that was their tip top of life. It actually wasn't. But in their own minds, because they'll be like in their like 50 years old, and they'll think back, oh, but back then I had no worries, I had no cares in the world, everything was great. Anybody in here have no cares in the world? Everybody in here, everything is great? Anybody in here think of it as like, these are the best days of your life? Yeah, probably doesn't feel that way. But when you're 50, you might look back on it as a 50-year-old. And say, I had no cares in the world. That's why I encourage you to hang on to these journals. Save them, man, because then you don't ever forget what 18-year-old you was thinking, what you were going through. So I encourage you to be honest in these things, not just do an assignment, scribble out, put big writing with big spaces between your words. Although that would remind you something important about yourself when you do look back on these things in 10, 20, 30 years. It would remind you of who you were, because of course when you're 50, you look back on these days and say, these are the best days, I had no cares, I had no concerns. It'd be nice to remind yourself, especially if you read these when you have kids the age that you are right now, to be able to remind yourself about the kinds of things that you were going through, because they'll be the same kinds of things that your kids will be going through. The things that you're going through right now largely are the same kinds of things that your parents were going through. The thing is that as we get old, we forget that. It's like I hear teachers who will complain about the ways in which some of you guys dress, and I'll be thinking like, oh yeah, not like when we were in high school. Like I think back to when I was in school and people were wearing flannel and Doc Martens and shorts. And it's like, really, that's the pinnacle of style? It's like every generation has its own style. We complain about the music that comes out today. Not like people complained about the music that we listen to, right? Every generation complains about the upcoming generation's style and the way that they talk and the music that they listen to. And we can forget about what it was like to be that. But oftentimes it takes courage to be able to remind yourself about who you used to be. And you shouldn't forget about who you used to be, but just remember that it's who you used to be, not who you presently are. And that as you're growing, so is everybody else around you. And the music that comes out today, it doesn't suck. It's different. The way that people dress today is not weird. It's different. And if when you're 15, you're dressing like somebody in their 60s, there's an issue there, probably. I think about life like an apartment. Like if you guys were to, let's say that somebody in here was like, I don't know, like you need a place to live, and I was like, oh, I have an apartment I don't live in, but if you it's already furnished, and if you want, you can go live there. And like, really? Yeah. So you move into the apartment, and it's already furnished, has a couch, TV, everything like that. I don't know, what would you do pretty early on? What's one of the first things you might do? Would you move the couch? Would you move the television because you want it on that wall over there? Would you move the plants around? Would you find a more efficient way of putting the utensils in the drawers? And then imagine I come and visit, and I walk in, I'm like, what, dude, you moved the couch and you moved the television. Yeah. Why? I like it this way. That's not the way it's supposed to be. Yeah, but I like it this way. That's that constant tension. You're moving into a world. You're moving into somebody else's apartment right now. And we oftentimes say, we are the future. Yeah, but you're not the present. Someday you'll be the present, and you'll have kids and they'll be the future. But it's important to remind yourself that you're only the future. And so you move into this apartment, you start moving things around. Of course, the person who was there before is going to be bothered by that because they finally got that apartment set up just the way they want it. The older generations have the world functioning somewhat as they're comfortable in it, not as they necessarily want it, not as it's best for it to be. But when you come in, you move things around, you don't know why that television's on that wall, and you don't know why the couch is over here. You just know that you don't like it, you're not comfortable with it. And they might say, well, yeah, but I spent all this time getting it because the sun comes in through that window, and but you move things around to make yourself more comfortable in it. That's what happens as you grow up and you move into the world. And so, yeah, there's a certain recklessness that happens because you don't know why things are set up the way that they are. This is why we will, when we're younger, we'll be unhappy with the world the way that it is because we don't understand why it is the way that it is. We don't understand why it can't be different. And why can't it be different? And there isn't a reason it can't be different. There isn't a reason. But also understand that there's a reason that it is the way that it is. And so understanding why that is, because it takes not just the courage to be able to initiate a change. It takes the courage to be able to see it through. I come in, I'm complaining about the way the couch is and the way the television is. You've got to have the courage to stand by it and say, no, this is the way that I want it to be. Or also have the intelligence to say, oh, got it, because the sun comes in that way at night, makes it so you can't see the screen. Okay, that is the better way. But to have the courage to explain it, have the courage to understand it, and have the courage to see it through. Like anything else, if you're going to do something, and it's interesting that he says anything, he speaks in this grandiose, generalization, anything that you're going to do, because you need to have the courage to do something. By the way, it may not seem like it, but there's a certain level of courage also in being able to do things, in not doing anything. Because, you might be like, I don't know what to do. Well, the world's going to happen. I don't know, do I go away to college or do I stay in San Diego? The world's going to happen either way. And if you just sit there and don't make a decision, the decision's going to be made for you. And so you have to have the courage to do something. You also have to have the courage if you don't do anything. Because either way, you've got to live with the consequences of everything that you do and everything that you don't do. Should you take that job at Walmart? Should you have taken that job at Starbucks? One thing's for sure is that most people are going to think that whichever decision they didn't take, that's the better one. Oh, if I had just taken that job at Starbucks, I wouldn't be having to stock these shelves right now. Oh man, things would be so much more chill. Well, you say that. And then the people at Starbucks are thinking, man, if I was working at Walmart, I'd be getting paid more. I could hide in the back and not do a lot. We say that. But which is the better way to go? The better way to go, like anything else in life, and I can promise you this, the better way to go in life is determined by how you respond to it. Which one should you take? Walmart or Starbucks? Doesn't matter, probably. What matters is the person you take to that job. Are there better and worse jobs? Yeah, 100%. Are there better and worse opportunities? Sure. But it isn't as determinative as most people think. I've been over at Starbucks before, and I've seen people who are doing a good job on the counter, and I've literally seen people hand business cards to those people and say, hey, I see you working back here. You're doing a great job multitasking. I could really use someone like you at my company, and hand them a business card. I've seen it. I also saw it once at the Walmart down here in Highland. Somebody who was stocking things and had a great attitude. I saw a person who was like trying to get around, and the person, oh, I'm sorry, and was helping him out. When I got done helping him out, the guy handed this person a business card. I've seen that too. And those are both, I don't know whatever happened with those obviously, but imagine if those had been fantastic opportunities that you would have missed if you were there like at Starbucks. Oh, this sucks, man, this is a rush. I wish I was at Walmart. But that person who was stocking the shelf at Walmart, if they had been like, yeah, it's down there somewhere. You know, what determined that person's opportunities in life was not where they were working, it was who they took to that job. And so it's hard for us to get our heads around because it's difficult if you're working a job that you don't like, that you're unhappy with. But again, it's the person that you bring there. If you don't take a good person there, you have to live with those consequences. If you bring a good person there, you get to live with those consequences. I guess the question is, what kind of consequences do you want to live with? So, questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques? Neat. Happy Tuesday. I lose track of the days after 4-day weekends.